Hey guys, Matt Mast back with another video for you guys this week. I just wanted to touch on kind of what's going on out in Minneapolis right now with the whole George Floyd incident, and just the way that we as a country are responding to that. We as a nation, it's the way we've responded to it. To be honest, is quite out of hand, and most certainly the wrong approach on something like this. Um, we kind of want to yell and tout, police brutality and all that stuff, racism, that's a common line that gets pushed with this kind of thing. But, let's look at the facts real quick, okay? Number one, we have a man who, was arrested for passing a counterfeit bill or a bad check at a store, right? It did not look like he was being very violent or anything as far as resisting arrest. But somehow it escalated, to the video that I'm sure we've all seen by now, which is, him on the ground by the cop car with three cops over top, and one cop with his knee against his neck, right? And you can plainly hear him saying that, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, and yet that cop still never let him up for air. So, number one, we know that a man died that should not have died, right? There's no arguing that fact. Number two, we know that there was a bad cop involved, right? But, we kind of quit our reasoning right there and just start, running everywhere saying how awful this thing is, and which it is, something like this should not happen. But, we then somehow slide way to the left on this and start justifying everything else that's happening out there as rightful justice. But the truth is, from the beginning, those officers were immediately let go. There was an internal investigation opened up against them, right? The FBI and the DOJ, they have both gotten involved to make sure that justice is served to this group of cops that were involved in this. But somehow we kind of leave that all out of the picture when we're looking at everything that's going on. And you heard the mayor, you've heard the news, saying like covering these riots and carrying on, and somehow it's justified and somehow they're protesters. Well, that's not the case. You cannot label destruction of private and public property, theft, right, vandalism, and all of that as protesters, right? That's not protesters. That's tyrannical rioters, that need to be put into check. A protest is showing up, in a large peaceful gathering. Yeah, you got signs. Yeah, you might be chanting something, but you're not harming anyone. You are exercising your rights, right, to assemble, your rights to, speak your mind and give your opinion, but you're not actually causing destruction to anyone or anything around you. That is a protest. But somehow we've completely lost sight of that, right? And what we need to know and understand is that, yeah, it's, it can be okay to look at something like this and be like, well, what the world was going on? Why did it get to that point? But that's exactly what the internal investigation, the FBI, and the DOJ are doing. And justice will be served to those who have, committed wrongdoing in this incident. But to fan these racial flames across, social media and everything else, and, screaming police brutality, it's not helping anyone. It's not doing anything. The truth is that the amount of racism that is left into our country is being kept alive, and those little embers are being magnified by the media, right? But so let's not play into their narrative by going on, taking to social media and being like, hey, you know what, yes, it is an awful event that should not have happened, but we're saying, obviously it's going to come back out again, right? Black lives matter. Yes, they matter, but they matter just as much as any other life. to put anyone onto a pedestal as if they matter more than anyone else is not right. So, if you don't agree with the narrative of or the phrase Black Lives Matter, and maybe you're of the opinion all lives matter because they all matter just as much. If you're of that opinion, rather than just Black Lives Matter, you've become a racist. So it's just a name calling situation and event that it doesn't get anyone anywhere. So maybe a better approach to this whole thing would be, what? We know that there's internal investigation. The DOJ is investigating. The FBI is investigating. Justice will be served to these cops that were involved in this. So rather than us going out there and, creating, conflict with people that we know about this situation, and rather than people going out there and, destroying public and private property and ruining their own communities, why don't we look at it and be like, okay, wait a minute. What kind of areas is this kind of incident happening in? And what do those areas have in, common? What's the common denominator there? And maybe let's go about seeing how we can affect change, positive change in that environment and in those districts to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again, right? So, it's just an interesting fact that places that have more of these incidents happening are often controlled by the far left, right? Minnesota, not only the governor, but the mayor of this city, the town council, and just the local leaders, they're all on the far left. Now, I don't want to get political on the whole thing, but obviously I will if I have to, because this video is going to be called political anyway, by those who fail to understand what's going on. But, it's just amazing to me that where most of this stuff happens is in those areas that are controlled by the far left. Now, these are the people that are telling us, every day that they're the ones who care about us as people, right? They've been saying for 50 years that they are going to make all this stuff go away. They're going to get rid of racism. They're going to punish the people who are racist. They're going to get rid of the bigots and the homophobes and everything else like that, right? But they've been in power in these areas for 35 to 40, 50 years, and nothing's gotten better. It's only gotten worse. So why wouldn't we, just as a, logical thought process, but ask ourselves, okay, wait a minute, why is that? If they've been promising that it's going to get better for so long and it's got nothing but worse under their leadership, maybe it's time for new leadership, right? So, that's just the way that we really should be looking at this whole thing. But I know I've had conversations with some people and they don't agree with that point of view, which is fine. I don't think any less of you really. For having a different opinion. I think it's great we have differing opinions. We can compare notes and come up with the best solution to, better everyone involved. But if we're just going to take to social media and, there's a couple, popular posts that are being floated around right now, including some that you have pictures of Floyd and everything, say my name, yada, yada, yada. Rather than taking to social media and ranting about it, why don't we just go ahead and look into, okay, wait a minute, how can we be involved, like physically involved in helping these kinds of areas and these kinds of communities to make them a better place for everyone? So, if you're like me, you want better local government, you want more freedom, you want better homes, you want better schools, and you kind of want to be able to take care of your own, right? So if we have those common traits, those common goals in mind, then, rather than looking to argue about stuff, why don't we just go ahead and, look for solutions? So, that's just kind of a, run down the take on what's happening right now. A reminder to us to look, don't let this thing interrupt our personal lives and our personal relationships, because obviously we all have friends and family that are, from more on one side of it than the other, that we may not completely agree with. But let's not use it as something that will tear us apart as people, but rather let us come together and be like, hey, you know what, we've got an opportunity to go into these areas and affect some positive change. So those are just some thoughts that I wanted to share on that, give us some perspective on it. Everything that I mentioned in this video, you can look up and see for yourself as facts. So if you got any questions, comments, complaints, obscene gestures, or anything like that, go ahead and post it in the comments. I'd love to read those. So